Hello and welcome to Colin's Baking with a Bread Machine channel. Now this is not a cooking channel, I'm not a chef, I'm definitely not a baker. This is supposed to be an outdoor adventure channel, but I didn't get a chance to do that this weekend, so I want to talk a little bit more about my goals and how things have been going, how things are for the next month, and how things are going to be going forward. First, let me talk about last month. So last month was January 2024 for all those people in the future, and things actually went okay in January. I was pretty optimistic all month, and I made a lot of progress on things. As far as debt is concerned, I've actually realized longer than that, but back in December, at the end of December, I sold my car. And when I sold my car, that was with the expectation that I would be making $3,000 a month payments going forward for the next 6 months until my debt was paid off. And in January, I exceeded that $3,000 a month savings. I only made a $3,000 a month payment because I don't get paid for everything I did in January. So it all ended up working out where I met my target and actually exceeded what I was planning on doing. So as far as debt repayment goes, that went really well. As far as this channel goes, things actually went okay. I actually picked up a lot of subscribers in 1 month for January, and I am actually really excited about that. I am really thankful that all of you guys subscribed, and my channel grew a lot. I had a lot of views, a lot more than I did in December and in November, so that was a big success as well. As far as revenue goes for my channel, that did not go very well, and it was kind of expected. January is never a great time for at least most channels. It's just really hard to find sponsors. A lot of people spent all their money for social media, in November and December, and that's basically what happened to me. In January, didn't get any sponsorship deals, didn't have a lot of products to review, at least nothing that I didn't pay for with Amazon credits or a little bit on my own, but that's actually okay. I've already gotten one potential sponsor who is working on a deal with me right now, and so that's going to start for the month of February. Revenue is already starting to pick up again, and I'm pretty optimistic on that for next month. But yeah, January, as far as revenue goes, I didn't really make a whole lot of money. And outside of these payments and my channel growing a little bit, I really didn't get a whole lot done in January. Part of the problem is I'm putting in so many hours, it comes at the expense of everything else. But that's just kind of how it goes when you're in extreme debt repayment mode. But things were going so well in January that I stayed pretty optimistic, wasn't feeling burnout too badly most of the time. Everything was looking up, I made a lot of progress on things, and then we got to February, which is this month. So for the month of February, things are not really off to a great start. And let me explain a few reasons why that is. So first off, this weekend I was supposed to film a video where I was going outside. I had a product to review, but unfortunately, I just didn't have time. My phone was ringing all Saturday, and I had to be on the phone all day instead of actually, getting things done. And that's okay for this week, but I can't have too many weeks like that. I really don't want to get behind on my filming schedule. So let's go over my financial goals for the month of February. Again, it's going to be a $3,000 a month payment for this loan, and I was thinking originally that I was actually going to be able to do a little bit of extra money, but something kind of bad happened at the end of January, and that was my taxes. So it may be that I decided to just kind of delay filing taxes until a little bit later. In fact, that's probably exactly what I'm going to do. But as it turns out, I owe a little bit of money on taxes, which seems a little strange when you have a only W-2 income source for the year, which is what happened last year. I had a little bit of money elsewhere, but this is almost all just regular old W-2 income. But what happened was at the beginning of the year, I got a sign-on bonus. Actually, I guess it was more like halfway through the year. So this sign-on bonus was about $10,000. And in theory, my company should have taken out a little bit of extra money, and I think they did. because bonuses are actually taxed at a higher rate, especially something large like an income bonus like that. And it's a significantly higher rate than the rest of my wages. I think probably what happened was they weren't realizing how much overtime I was putting in. And because of that, my income was a lot higher than they were expecting, and I think it put me in a different tax bracket. But whatever the case, the end result was I now owe a little less than $1,000. It's not a huge amount of money, but I do owe a little bit of money to the IRS, and I'm just probably going to delay it so that February I can make this $3,000 a month payment on time, because things are going to be a little bit tighter this month than they were in January. There are a couple of reasons why things are a little bit tighter this month, and so let's talk about that. First thing is I unfortunately got an extra paycheck in January, so I had 5 paychecks instead of the usual 4. February, there aren't even 5 weeks on any day because it's a short month, of course. And that means that, unfortunately, I won't be making as much money. It's just the way it is. But I still should be able to make that $3,000 a month mark. It's just gonna be a little bit tighter. The other reason is I'm not working quite as many hours as I was. Part of it is we were really behind at work, and now we're still behind, but not quite to the same extent, and so they're not giving out overtime as much. That's okay though. It's all stuff I can deal with, and I expect my cost of living will be extremely low this month. I'm not really planning on spending much of any money. As far as channel growth is concerned, I don't know how well this channel is going to do in February. There are some good things that are happening in February, but a lot of things that I filmed in January are coming out in February, and I don't expect them to perform all that well, including this video. It's just a lot of difficulties with actually filming. I haven't had as many sponsorships in January, not as many products sent to me to review. And you know, that's just kind of the way it goes, especially in January as a YouTuber. Things just don't happen as much. And things are already picking up in February. I have a deal with the company. Hopefully it'll go through and I'll have another product to review. And that should be happening sometime in the next week. All right, let's get this bread in the bread machine. Well, now that that's running, I can relax a little bit for a few minutes anyways. So, what's happening other than that in February? I don't think there's going to be a whole lot else going on. Basically, it's just the way it is. It's just going to be work, sleep, and hopefully film as much as I can on the weekends. Unlike January, where everything was going well and I was feeling really motivated, so far in February, just the first 3 or 4 days, whatever it is, I'm feeling pretty demotivated. It feels like most of my life, I'm basically in a almost constant state of burnout. Things were a little bit better those years where I was working as a teacher and when I was not in school. Those years actually went pretty well. I had quite a bit more free time. And even the time that I did have when I was working on something I felt was really productive. I was pretty happy with my work, and even though I could see there were going to be problems in the future, overall, you know, I was optimistic and I had enough flexibility in my schedule, you know, that I could really do what I wanted to do. And when it's a short-term kind of burst of hard work where you're just working 24/7 for a short period of time, that's pretty easy to deal with. In fact, that can be really exciting and fun. The problem I have is when things just start turning into a major grind. It just go on for months and months on end. Like I can barely remember much of the last couple of years, and it just really bothers me. But things should get better fairly soon. Having that end date with my loan being within, you know, a reasonable time frame, that really helps keep me motivated. So even though I am starting to feel burned out again, I think I have enough good things going on that I can push through. So basically, February I think has a lot of potential. I know it's going to be a lot of just grinding through work, and that's not going to be fun, but I do have some videos coming out, especially these sponsored videos that should be a lot of fun to film, and I'm optimistic that at least my income from my YouTube channel should be increasing a little bit throughout February, especially in the second half of February when those videos start coming out. I guess I should get back to work on doing food prep again. So let's go back to what my plans are longer term, because I've started thinking more about what I'm going to do as soon as I pay off this debt. So I have several options that I've been considering as soon as I pay off this debt, and a lot of it's going to depend on what my situation is and how the world looks, what the price of things like real estate and fuel and, that kind of thing, what those prices look like in 6 months. Really hard to say at this point. There's obviously all kinds of chaos going on, and that's always going to happen. So it's just something that I have to deal with. I really liked being fully nomadic for a while there, but longer term it does kind of create some issues. I do think having a home base is important. A lot of it's just for legal reasons. Having a place to call your permanent address that is actually yours and can be, definitively said as yours, and it's actually a residential real property. I think that actually is fairly important. I have been looking into the costs of what it would take to buy something, whether it's a house here in the city, which at my income I actually might be able to afford. I'm not sure I want to afford that. It's crazy expensive here in the city, and what it would mean to actually make that kind of money, it's just a lot of hours of my time. There are things I could do to maybe improve my income, which I'll get to in a second as well, but buying in the city I think is kind of out as far as my options. But unfortunately, one of the things you do have to consider is to make good money, unless you're in a kind of special situation or you're in a very particular type of industry, you basically don't make as much money if you live farther away from the city. That's just kind of how it goes, unfortunately. There are exceptions, of course, and whether or not I want to be one of those exceptions, I don't know. I've actually always preferred living in small towns. I think it has a lot of the aspects of living in the city that I like, like other people being around, some sort of industry, being able to actually go out and do things. But it also has the opportunity where you can have your own land, your own house. People aren't really getting in the way of each other. There's fewer restrictions on what you can do with your own property, stuff like that I really like about living out in the middle of nowhere. And I've done that before. In some cases it's been really good, in other cases it hasn't been quite so good, but I think having your own property in a small town is kind of my ideal, or at least near a small town. I think the biggest issue is making money in areas that are a little bit more remote. It's a little bit more difficult. I was hoping that this channel would grow and would make enough money that I could use that as an income source, and I think longer term that may be true, but right now we're not anywhere close to, having enough money to make any difference in my budget whatsoever. In fact, I'm losing money with every video I make, but that's okay. That will improve over time. I could continue working as a truck driver in a more rural area. I think my ideal, if I went that route, would be to buy my own truck. That's something I may do anyways. I prefer working for myself. I think most of us do. And I am at the point where I have enough experience driving now that I can do that. The only problem is when you start getting into more remote, more rural areas, the opportunities for drivers, they still exist, but they tend to be more over-the-road opportunities, or in Western Washington anyways. I'm talking about log truck driving. That's not what I want to do, but that's kind of what's available in more remote areas. I'm still hoping that I can find work where I'm home every night, and that's still an option, but we'll see. If I stayed here in the city, I could definitely do that. I could have my own truck, I could go home every night, but then you're really tied to your work and you're putting in lots of hours. There's lots of opportunity because you're in the city and there's lots of opportunity for work, but that does come at the expense of your time. And time is really the big thing that I need to fix moving forward, because right now I'm spending all my time making money as a truck driver, which is fine. That's what I need to be doing at the moment, but that's not what I want to do long term. I don't really care that much about my job. It's just something I do to make money, and I spend all of my time doing it. And so that makes me pretty unhappy. And the only worry I have is no matter which direction I choose going to a rural area, that means I have to drive over the road. That means I'm not really working on things that I want to do. And if I stay here in the city, then I'm not going over the road, I'm staying local, but I still don't have any time to do the things I want to do. So I'm not really sure there's any benefit one way or the other. So this is going to be one of those things, I think, where I'm just going to have to keep an eye out on the opportunities out there and just see what comes up. One option that I had really considered, and it was something that I was considering before 2020, when everything started really going bad, is I had considered leaving the country, and it's definitely an option that's still on the table. So there's some good reasons for that, partly because, I'm a trained classical musician. Not the best country to be that. Not the worst either, but there are other countries that really support their classical music community, and I could go move to one of those countries and join it. Unfortunately, I have zero time to practice, and if I try to go to one of these other countries and get a piano job, they're going to want an audition. I can't audition because I can't practice. Another option that I had considered is moving onto a sailboat. So this is something that I had talked about before. I talked about actually building my own sailboat. I have concerns about doing that. It's mostly just the time involved and the cost, and they're kind of related. But if I try to do that here, it's going to take a lot of time, and it costs me a lot of money to stay here in Seattle. If I move to a more remote area, then I'm not really sure that I would have any big advantage to doing that, because I'd probably have to work more over the road. And again, then I wouldn't be home to work on a sailboat project. But there are plenty of sailboats for sale in Seattle, tons of them. I could buy one and then relocate myself to a different country that way. And that is a legitimate option. That would be probably the least expensive option, but it would be kind of risky financially unless this channel grew a lot over the next 6 months. So it's just something that I'm gonna have to keep an eye on for the next 6 months, and we'll just kind of see where things are. But this is one of those things where I think a lot of people end up having issues, is you try to escape, the system of living that we have become so accustomed to here in the US. And it's actually quite difficult unless you have a lot of money, a lot of time to work on things, maybe in an unusually low cost of living situation. Maybe you can live with your parents for a while. It's not an option for me. It's actually very, very difficult to break free because of time, basically. You don't really have time to start something else because you have to spend most of your time working to make money to sustain a regular lifestyle. The good news is, if I continue to stay living in this apartment and working my job as much as I am right now, completely unsustainable, but I could spend that $3,000 a month in savings instead of paying off debt. Obviously, once the debt's paid off. I don't know. I don't really have a good solution for this, but feel free to let me know in the comments what you think. And hopefully next video, I will actually be able to go back outside again and review products, especially one that's already sitting on my kitchen counter.